Alrighty, so it looks like I'll be doing a voiceover for this training vlog, guys. Unfortunately, I was a dumbass and I forgot to connect the aux cord to my receiver for my Rode Wireless Go 2. So it was connected to my phone, but it wasn't connected to the receiver. So the receiver was unable to pick up the audio from the actual mic that was attached to my shirt. So yeah, shit happens, I suppose, but we're still getting it done nonetheless. So this was my second pull session of the week, or I guess you'd say back, rear delt, and bicep session, because I know some people don't consider rear delts part of the back, but I personally do. Yeah, so just doing some narrow parallel grip pull downs here to start the session off. Pretty straightforward, nothing to really kind of, I suppose, touch on here. Not a lot of commentary for this exercise, to be honest, but I just want to apologize if you can hear some background noise. I'm not sure if it's picking it up or not because I'm using my AirPods to do this voiceover. But my partner's just having a shower at the moment and there's music on. So hopefully it's not picking up the music in the background. But nonetheless, if it is, you can still probably hear me just fine. But yeah, I did, I believe, was it 3 sets of this? And yeah, I'll just put the whole session in the note section. That'll just make it easier instead of saying I did 3 sets of this for X amount of reps. So yeah, started off with a narrow parallel grip pull down. I really like to start all my back training sessions off with either a pullover movement, pullover motion, or a vertical pull. Not a big fan of starting back sessions with a horizontal pull. I just don't think it really sets you up for a good session. I find getting a deeper stretch allows you to get a better mind to muscle connection. As long as you're not doing a stupid amount of volume, you're not going to fatigue yourself to the point that it negatively impacts or detracts from your output on the following exercises in the session. But yeah, I start with a vertical pull usually or a pullover. So obviously my other back day I start with a pullover. This day I start with that vertical pull, the narrow parallel pull down. And I move into a seated cable row here. Now this specific seated cable row, the seat's elevated a little bit higher than most conventional cable rows in relation to the line of pull. And then the handle I'm using again is just a narrow parallel handle. This one's a little bit unique. It's a little bit better in my opinion when compared to like the more kind of conventional like V grip handles that you see in a lot of commercial gyms. It's a bit more of an old school handle, this one, and I'm really focusing on getting a deep stretch, as you can see here at the end, or as I approach that starting position of each rep. Allowing that mid back to kind of round and hunch over a little bit like Quasimodo. So I'm allowing my shoulder blades to kind of reach around the front of my rib cage on the stretch. And I'm also allowing that spine to kind of like flex or round over a little bit. And then as I come back into that contraction, pulling those elbows toward the torso, toward I suppose, the hips and the torso, just keeping them nice and close and getting a little bit more extension through the back. So kind of like doing the reverse of rounding my back on the squeeze. And it's really focusing on getting a good peak contraction. Tempo is kind of consistent. The reps aren't like continuous reps. I am doing a little bit of a pause at the contraction and a little bit of a pause at the stretch, but for the most part, they're just consistent, controlled repetitions. And we just take a moment to admire my neck rolls. It was actually kind of a bit of a side goal of mine to eventually get neck rolls. I know a lot of people probably don't like them and they personally kind of want to avoid getting them, but I've always been obviously like a skinny kid growing up. And I noticed a lot of the real jacked guys who weren't fat, like who were just genuinely that fucking jacked. They had like these kind of like neck rolls starting to form. And now that I've kind of got them, it's kind of a little bit of a motivating factor, I suppose. Like I find it, yeah, I find it quite neat. Anyway, I'm doing the low row here. It's actually one of my favorite horizontal pulling movements. I get a really good mind to muscle connection. Some people don't, and I think a lot of it has to do with like your clavicles, like how wide your clavicles are, and all that sort of stuff, and just how broad your shoulders are in general. But if you built well for this machine, it gives you such a nutty contraction, and I just get so much out of it. Um, Even though it's quite a short range of motion, and due to the way that the weight's loaded on the exercise, the moment arm's kind of favourable in the way of like you can put a lot of weight on. It looks quite impressive. Like I think I worked up to 4 plates aside here. So 4 45-pound plates. They're not 20 kilo plates, actually 20.4 kilo plates. So like 45-pound plates, 4 of them aside. And I could have just repped it out like just for probably like 15 to 20 reps quite comfortably if it was the first exercise of the session. So, yeah, you can move a lot of weight on it. So I suppose it's good for the ego in that sense, but I just happen to get a really good contraction on it. I know some people don't, so it's not the best exercise or not ideal for everybody, but for me, it's a fantastic movement, just really good finisher in all honesty for back for me. And then here I'm moving on to some rear delts. This is the only rear delt exercise I had for the session, just reverse pec deck flies. And as you see, I'm not actually gripping the handles. I'm actually using my wrist, and I'm just resting it on the inner side of the I suppose the machine's arms. This allows me to get a little bit of an extended range of motion. Because if I held onto the handles, then the plates would touch sooner. I wouldn't be able to stretch the rear delts as much, come like in front of myself as much before the plates touched. So it allows me to get like an extra inch or so of range of motion, which just stretches the rear delts a little bit more, allows you to just get a little bit more stimulus, which is overall just going to hypothetically lead to more growth. And then on top of that too, just really focusing on a good squeeze at the end of each rep. Not trying to like retract my shoulder blades or pull my shoulder blades back that much. I'm also just focusing on just basically hinging my arms out at the shoulder joint. There's a little bit of retraction that does occur, especially as you start to fatigue toward the end of the sets, and that is unavoidable. Like you're not going to completely isolate the rear delts in anything. Like there's always going to be like synergists involved, and like muscles that kind of work alongside the muscle you're trying to target in whatever action you're doing, like whatever exercise you're doing. But you just want to try to emphasize the muscle you're trying to target as much as possible. And just accept that, yeah, sure, there's going to be other muscle groups that do come into it a little bit, but if you can just try and minimize the amount that they contribute to the movement or to the actual like lift, then that's what matters. So yeah, just doing rear delts here, and the way I try to keep the rear delts predominantly active, and I suppose the mid back, the traps, like the mid lower traps and rhomboids a little bit less active, is just by shortening the range of motion, not going all the way back and like trying to put my arms behind me. I'm just kind of like going out until my rear delts can't really contract anymore, and then I stop and then come back in nice and slow. Really trying to be mindful of not pausing or not pausing for long at that starting position at the front, just to try to keep that tension, that time on attention a little bit more continuous. As you see, I'm getting quite close to failure here. But yeah, that was the only rear delt exercise I did, and I believe they were rep match sets. So I was just rest pausing until I could match the reps that I got on the first weighting set. But yeah, um, not really much else to kind of touch on this. So I'll probably just yeah wait until the next exercise starts. A little bit of awkward silence for you guys. But yeah, how about the weather? The weather's been pretty nice lately, yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't really know what else to say here. A lot of people fuck this exercise up. I suppose I could touch on that. Um, they just they use too much momentum, and they wonder why they don't feel the results. Slow it down. Just do it how I was doing it, and I can guarantee that if you do that for enough reps, you're going to feel your results. Now here I'm doing the first bicep exercise of the session, just a machine preacher curl. Now this machine preacher curl in particular, the angle of it, the the like actual like I suppose tension or like the suppose the load throughout the entire range of motion is so consistent. Like it feels amazing. I've used so many different brands of preacher curls over the years, like machine preacher curls, and this one is really the top of the list in terms of my favorite ones. Like it just feels amazing. The grips are not too thick; they're not too like narrow either. It feels just right. Like everything about this machine is just kind of like the whole like Goldilocks, not too much, not too little, like not too insufficient. It's like just right. And yeah, just really focusing on getting a good peak contraction at the top because any preacher curl here, because of the position that your arms in at the shoulder joint, you see here, like the arms quite elevated at the shoulder. Like for example, like a dumbbell incline curl, your arm is quite extended. Like extension, shoulder extension refers to the arm kind of being either like by your side or behind your torso. So like in an incline dumbbell curl, you're in a lot of shoulder extension. In this movement, you're in more shoulder flexion. And in any movements where you're in shoulder flexion, like machine preacher curls or high cable curls, you're able to target the short head and just target the bicep in a shortened position in general a lot more effectively. So you should just really focus on honing on that peak contraction, that shortening of the bicep in each rep, and a little bit less focus on the stretch, because even though you can obviously get a pretty decent stretch, you're not going to fully stretch the bicep in a movement like this, because in order to stretch the bicep fully, due to the fact that the bicep attaches over onto the shoulder and then onto the arm, you need to actually have your arm behind your body to fully stretch the bicep and then extend or like straighten fully at the elbow joints. So that's why incline dumbbell curl is great for just hitting that long head bicep and just hitting the bicep in that fully stretched position. And something like a incline dumbbell curl or even a Bayesian curl, which is the exercise I do here, it's fantastic for just really focusing on that stretch at the bottom of each rep. So that's what you focus on in these movements. You want to pause in that stretch position, see how like my shoulder is. I suppose my arm is extended back at my shoulder, so my arms are kind of like in an angle, a diagonal angle backwards behind my torso. Torso is quite upright, and then my arms angled back. That allows me to stretch the actual bicep muscle out a lot more. I can guarantee if you pause at the bottom here like I am and curl up, really focusing on keeping it strict, not using the front delts to kind of assist that much, you will feel your biceps light up like a Christmas tree. I'm telling you now. So yeah, it's one of my favorite bicep exercises. Again, with any bicep exercise, if you're wanting to target the actual bicep and not the brachialis, which obviously runs on the outer side of the bicep, then your best bet is to just try to keep the elbows tucked by your sides as much as possible. Really focus on squeezing through the ring fingers and the pinky fingers, and that'll just allow you to, I suppose, just utilize the bicep to a greater degree in any kind of elbow flexion or curling, I should say, curling movement. That yeah, basically finish the session off with these Bayesian curls, and they are a treat. Honestly, this is one of my favorite exercises. I do prefer it over incline dumbbell curls. And then if I want to hit it biceps in a fully shortened position, machine preacher curls like I did before, or another exercise called potty curls. They're fantastic. Just YouTube potty curls, and you'll see what I mean. But they're fantastic. They're a great substitute for a preacher curl if you don't have a machine preacher curl at your gym, but you do have a set of cables. Another alternative too is if you YouTube high cable bicep curl. That's a fantastic substitute for a preacher or a potty curl as well, because it places the bicep in a shorter position. The shoulder is in more flexion. You can just really focus on that contraction, that peak contraction. But this one, even though you can get a good contraction, you're going to get a much better stretch. So just yeah, use the movement like this or a incline dumbbell curl to focus on the stretch of the bicep, and use a preacher, a potty curl, or a high set cable bicep curl to target the bicep in its shortened position. Or even something like a spider curl is good for targeting the bicep more in the shortened position and the shorter head of the bicep. Yeah, that's pretty much the session, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next video.